All right. Sat down, made my notes. Halfway through, I started writing it like an essay. I hope I don't read it like an essay. Anyways, the video. Season of the Chosen is finally coming to an end, and I have some thoughts on it. This season has been quite amazing. Honestly, in my opinion, one of the best ones we've had in well over a year. Don't get me wrong, we've had some really great seasons and events and moments, but as a whole, like all the content surrounding what makes a season, this is probably the best one. And here's why. First off, we want to talk about the seasonal activity that was introduced, the Battlegrounds. It was a fantastic, mindless activity full of just slaughtering Cabal and a few other races here and there depending on the map, but mainly Cabal. Which, funnily enough, allowed us to start using the Skyburner's Oath more. I mean, I haven't touched that gun in almost 2 years, and then all of a sudden it becomes completely meta in these Battlegrounds because of its bonus damage to Cabal. So that's really nice. Bungie went above and beyond by giving us 4 different maps. 2 of them were released periodically throughout the season, which is fine. They came out relatively quick. But those were really good. Very beautiful, good environment. You can see the Cabal ships in orbit in your patrol zones. And it just really has that continuity feel to the seasons. And every mission is a little bit different. Like, there's kind of the same layout of 1 section, 2 section, and then boss area. But each of those sections are a little bit different. Whether it's you're doing the bombs first, whether there are any bombs, whether you're just holding out a position or attacking, etc. Each one is slightly different, so it doesn't feel repetitive. Of course, it's gonna be repetitive, but you get my point. The loot for the Battlegrounds, it was good. I admit the armor look for this season was a little rough. Not the best, but it has its own aesthetic. So if you're feeling that mood, then you have it, right? It's just me personally. It's just not my style. And the weapons that they introduced, really good. Rolls are amazing. The introduction of the new Umbral system, super nice. Just being able to focus your umbrals, being able to get more powerful weapons, or at least being able to choose between perks, that's super nice. I missed that from Season of Arrivals. I'm glad that's back. And I've definitely gotten a few rolls that I've wanted. It takes a while, but this kind of goes back to the whole hammer charge. The great dynamic between playing your core playlist and playing the Battlegrounds playlist. Especially once you get all the upgrades for the hammer, I feel like that balance between the two is really nice. You only have to play a handful of playlist activities to fully charge up your hammer, and then you can play like 4 or 5 rounds of Battlegrounds before you're done, or out of Cabal Gold. And you can get some good loot with all those charges you get. So that's about it for that. One gripe I have in just Destiny 2 boss mechanics in general is the 3-stage bosses. I understand it prolongs the fight, makes us enjoy the mechanics at the end, because Bungie puts time into that. But man, is it annoying when you know you can just wipe down that boss as quickly as possible, but you can't just because they get the invulnerability shield a third of the way in. So I don't know. My personal opinion is if they want to keep that, change it down to 2 stages. That way it doesn't feel like a drag and I'm wasting time when I shouldn't be. Or do something a little similar to the Inverted Spire. I think that's a great boss mechanic where if you can melt the boss quickly, you can. But if you don't get it within like a certain small time frame, you gotta go through all the mechanics. Which, I mean, that's fair. You failed to burn down the boss quickly, so your punishment is to play it how it should. Speaking of strikes, 3 strikes were introduced in this season, given 2 of them were old from D1, but they were very beloved. And a new one, the Proving Grounds Strike, which came about halfway through the season, near the wrap-up of the storyline, where we invade the land tank that we first see in the very first Proving Grounds that we go into. We finally get to go inside and fight Keidel's champion. It's a relatively short strike. The beginning of it feels like a Battlegrounds. And throughout the strike, you encounter little mini bosses. It's just close quarters, lots of Cabal. And it's a relatively short encounter. I mean, I think a good third of the time you spend in that strike is the boss fight. But considering the fact that the strike came out in the middle of a season, in the middle of the year, I don't really expect it to be a full-fledged, like, huge strike like Devil's Lair. I'm just happy to have a new strike, just to have something new pop up within that strike playlist. I know a lot of people kind of griped about it, but in my opinion, I think it was fine. The only problem with that is the 3 stages at the end, which is super annoying, and I've already talked about that before. However, most of these bosses are really tanky though, so being able to kill them that quickly is a little harder than you would think. But eventually we will be able to, and yeah. So let's move on to the old strikes. The introduction of Devil's Lair and Fallen Saber. Both beloved strikes, one being the very first strike of D1 and the second one being one of the first ones of the Taken King. Both are relatively different, just because of the time periods they came out within our Destiny universe. But it was such a good refresher to be back in Devil's Lair. Mainly for the hordes of enemies that are within that strike. Everybody in your fire team would be able to get over 100 kills. You're easily able to hit the 100k score in the Nightfall multiplier. Playing with randoms. I mean, I can't achieve that in that difficulty of the playlist. You have to go above that where it's closed matchmaking. But it's a great strike. I hope Bungie gives us more enemies to kill in the future. Because even now, like, when I'm working on certain strike bounties and whatnot, I'll just straight up load Devil's Lair. Because I know I'll be able to get the kills I need. Versus going into the playlist, which provides better loot, but takes me twice as long to fulfill the bounties because I'm fighting with my companions and getting kills. I was a little sad with Saber, with the Fallen Saber strike. The boss battle, it was changed. If I recall correctly, there were 3 stages, but there was no invulnerability shield. At each stage, the boss changed its tactics. At the beginning, it had the... I believe it was the solar cannon. Second one was the void machine gun. And then at the last third, it became the arc suicide unit, where it would just charge at you and kill you instantly. The environment was a lot more hazardous. And I don't know, they changed it up. And it kind of made me a little sad. But I'm happy it's back. One thing that a lot of Crucible and Gambit players are mad about is that strikes keep getting updated. Because we've gotten a couple new strikes within the past year. Whereas we've gotten no Gambit matches, no Gambit maps, and no Crucible maps. In fact, we've lost a few Crucible and Gambit maps. So just a thought I had, in case Bungie ever hears this, or if you guys agree with it, is every season we rotate. So this season we got a new strike, next season we get a new Crucible map, next season after that we get a new Gambit map. Or if that's too quickly, maybe like every other season we get a new strike. Every other season we would get a new Crucible map, etc. Right? Just kind of balance that out, devote a little bit of resources to developing these little things. If they can. I'm only saying that because we got a new strike this season. Which tells me that they can, but if they can't, then I understand why they haven't, but I want to share that love with you PvP folk. You guys deserve some love, especially Crucible. Because how long has it been since you got a Crucible map? Like 2 years? Something like that? Oof, we don't even have a Europa Crucible map, do we? That's a good idea, Bungie. You should get on that. Something that was introduced last season was the exotic replayable mission, where you could grind out an exotic weapon with a random roll. This season, they did the same thing with the Presage mission. However you say that. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It's the exotic quest for the Dead Man's Tale. And what a great mission that was. It kind of had that horror vibe. It had lore every single week up till this week. This most recent weekly reset, the last one of the season, still had a new lore for this mission. I thought that was amazing. Just the story, the depth, the character development for Callus, his shadows, his obsession with the darkness. It's great. I haven't been following it. I've only ran the strike once just to get the gun generally. Like, I don't even have a random roll set for it. But I've been keeping up with Bice's videos on the lore of the ship and the Dead Man's Tale. So go ahead, go to his channel. He has all the videos from all the weeks. And kind of goes more into depth with each of those. I'm no help there. Speaking of Dead Man's Tales, let's talk about the exotic weapons introduced this season. First is the free exotic weapon that Bungie gives us. It's been the pattern for well over a year now. Taiku's Divination? Yeah, the bow. You know, the flaming bow that seeks people. Very fun gun, or bow weapon. Very fun weapon. It's unique. It has its own quirks. It has its own usage. Is it OP? No. But none of those free exotics are. My only gripe with it is the quest to get the catalyst, which has been the pattern for many seasons now, and it pisses me off. Mainly because it requires you to go into Crucible, get a ton of kills, a ton of matches, then go back into Crucible, get a ton more kills with the specific gun. I don't understand why those are two separate steps. Merge them into one. Or just get rid of the Crucible in general. Just make it so you gotta get kills with the stupid gun, and Guardian kills count as more or whatever. I don't know. I just hate having to use the gun for half the season just to get the catalyst, and then have to use it for the other 3 seasons afterwards just to get the catalyst. If that makes sense. I unlock the catalyst, but then I gotta upgrade the catalyst. It's a lot of usage for a gun that's not the best. It's unique, it's fun, but I want to use my other weapons. Weapons that I feel like get more damage done. Now to the second weapon, the Dead Man's Tale. Amazing. When I first saw that weapon and saw the mechanics of it with the bolt action style, the multiple round reload instead of a clip, I fell in love with it. I love guns like that. They're just satisfying to use. And then with the catalyst, it makes it so useful, especially in Crucible. And plenty of you have experienced it. Like I said, I don't even have a normal roll for Dead Man's Tale, much less the catalyst. But from what I've seen, it looks nasty. So hopefully I can get that one day. That's definitely a goal of mine. But what a great gun. Bungie, thank you. Next season, No Land Beyond? Huh? I'm excited to see that gun back in the game. I want that gun back in the game. Such a fun gun. Next, lore. We talked a little bit about it with the Dead Man's Tale and how great it was week to week. But the main story overall, with the Battlegrounds, the strikes, every week going to the helm, amazing. The introduction of Keitel and her story, the main antagonist of this season. You come to love her at the end. You come to understand where she comes from, her desire for honor and the safety of her people. She wants you to join her to protect her people. Not because she thinks she can conquer you, but because she wants to protect her people. Now, because of her council's pride and whatnot, she knows that she has to look strong and firm. They're the Cabal. They're feared. But she, in the backhand lore, like within the armors and the weapons and whatnot, you read that she understands the power we hold. Like she knows she's not going to persuade us to join her empire. But in the end, we get that truce. So who knows? Maybe it ends up good for her. But you can tell that as just a casual player, you can get really invested in this story. And from the Cabal who ruined us in D2, you can come to respect them within this season. And I think that's a great story arc. Another great story arc is the redemption of Crow, who, again, we come to hate all throughout Destiny 1, who we hate all throughout Forsaken, especially Forsaken. And then in last season and this season, we come to love him. He's a whole different person. We see him shunned in darkness and to come to light as a hero and savior of the last city. I hope he appears more in the seasons to come. I hope he becomes a more main character like Zavala and Ikora, because he really does bring to light what a Guardian is. And the more we dabble with darkness subclasses and mingle with the pyramids, I think Crow will stand as a good contrast to us in the end. I'm not saying we're going to turn evil, but Crow is kind of like that manifestation of light. In conclusion, this was a great season. Ignoring the fact that Guardian games had to happen and Bungie had to develop that behind all of this seasonal content in Iron Banner and all that stuff, right? You know, the normal behind the scenes. The season overall was perfect. Lore was great. The exotic weapons were amazing. The exotic mission was done perfectly. The introduction of a great activity that doesn't interfere with our core playlists is great. In fact, the Battlegrounds is its own playlist. You can just get into a fire team, go into the playlist, and just play those 4 over and over again for loot. And I think that's a great system. And something I noticed was last season we had kind of the public event style hunt. We have the 3-man playlist mini strike this season. The next season they introduced the 6-man activity. So each of these seasonal activities, although they're going to stay for the full year, they don't step on each other's shoes. So I think Bungie knows what they're doing in terms of these seasonal content, and they nailed it. I hope next season is a lot like this season, because Season of the Chosen is definitely going to be remembered as one of the best in this year of Destiny. Let me know what you guys think of this season. Anything you liked, any gripes you have. Let me know down in the comments below. And until then, I will see you all next season.